I bought 100 trees from him, cultivars. And I came out here and I planted them in 2005. And I'll show you where I planted them. And some of them are still alive. They were all grafted trees. But I didn't anticipate the effects of wind on this tree, okay? We get right at this site here, we're out in the middle. This is like a thumb sticking out in the Atlantic Ocean. It's 18 miles across on Long Island Sound to get to the Connecticut shore. So we were pretty much surrounded by water here. This is the North Fork. So we've got the Hamptons down here and we're up here where my knuckle is. So we have a microclimate here. It doesn't really get very, very cold out here. It goes down to the mid-20s in the middle of the winter. That's cold. This is agricultural zone 7. But wind is the big problem. Wind is, we get a sustained wind. If you wanted to build a wind farm, this is the place to build it. And there actually is a lot of issues with that, okay? Because the local community doesn't want to see wind farms out here. But when you go to the U.S. Department of Energy map, they actually recommend putting wind farms right here. Because there's 6 months out of the year coming off Long Island Sound, you got a sustained wind. And 6 months a year from the southwest, you have sustained wind coming off the ocean. Now that wind is what my plants have to deal with out here. And as we go through here, I will show you some wind damage and the effects of wind on all different trees. But let me start right here where we're standing. This tree right here is 3 years old. It's a Turkish hazel. I got another Turkish hazel here. I grew them from seed. I love these trees. I love them because they're responding to my soil, they're responding to my climate, and they're very vigorous. What am I doing to them? I just throw some 10-10-10 fertilizer on them in the spring, and that's pretty much it. And leave them be. Now, what's going on here with precipitation? We get good precipitation in the spring. When we get into the beginning of July and August, we can go into a drought mode. Things really get dry. The soil here, I should have brought a little shovel. This is all loam. My friend Ed May helped me plant some stuff on here. And I'll never forget, we called them Professor Podzolas. It was, I went to a 2-year ag tech school upstate New York, Morrisville, and I took soil science. And I remember him saying, if you can make a ribbon in your hand, you can mold the soil into a ribbon, you got a loam. And that's kind of what we got here. This here soil, yeah, it's got, but it's, he likes that. You want to play with that, huh? Okay. Okay. This is a loam. It's what they call a sandy loam. As you play with it in your hand, you can feel the grit. All right. The loam, the clay holds the moisture. Does a pretty good job. But when we get that 2 months of dryness, this soil will turn to stone. It gets very, very hard. All right. I do have a drip irrigation system on the property, on half the property. I haven't used it in a few years. There's a reason for that. What I'd really like to do is I'd like to put up a windmill here. And I'd like to get attached to the grid. And I'd like to pump electricity into the grid. And then I'd like to run my irrigation system off of the grid, you know, and irrigate. I haven't gotten to that stage yet because I need some capital, all right? Need money. And, but that's my dream. I got a well. I'm down 120 feet. I'm in quartz sand here. Pure quartz sand, snow white. And I'm down 120 feet because all the other farmers in the area, oh, that's a good one. We'll get to that. Get the potatoes too, Megan. There's a bag of potatoes in the car. What was I saying? 120 feet. Well, the local neighbors are down 120 feet.
Oh, okay.
And the water table starts at 45 feet. Okay? So you got a water column there of about 80 feet that, you know, from where I am. And your submersible pump doesn't sit at the bottom; it has to hang in there, and you pump somewhere. That way you don't suck all the grit up through it. And I can pull with a 1.5 horsepower pump. I can pull 60 gallons per minute. Okay, and it's crystal clear water, and it's 55 degrees. It's beautiful stuff. And I can feed half the acreage with that. Okay, I have 3 zones. I have to throw some valves in this drip irrigation system. The drip irrigation system was actually designed by Cornell Cooperative Extension here in Riverhead, Department of Water Resources, Natural, what's it called? NC, Natural Conservation Resources. It was under an environmental incentive grant, okay? And I use that term incentive grant because I don't want anybody to walk away with an illusion thinking that the government paid for my drip irrigation system. I ended up getting 25 cents on a dollar, okay? I put the other 75 cents in. But that's what it was. It was called an incentive grant. I don't consider it to be a waste of money. I would like to eventually get it up to full speed, but I gotta work out the thing. There's now the people, the locals, I use the term, the imports really. The locals, the natives, they don't resist the windmills, but it's the suburbanites, the transplants that have come into this area. I'm in an agricultural zone here. This farm is a USDA producing farm. It's certified that way. The Farmland Select Committee accepted me into the agricultural district, which I think is 60, and I have an ag property tax on this property. So it's the real deal. And I file a crop report annually. So I do want to, I see this as an experimental farm. Nobody in this area is growing nut trees. No one has ever grown nut trees in this area. Everybody's been doing vegetable farming for the most part. And the landscape ornamental industry has taken over because, as was said earlier today, property values are so high in this area that you got to get a return on their land. But I'm one of these dreamers that is interested in, well, can we continue to live the way that we've been living? We need to find alternative things. And I remember those olive groves in Greece. And I say to myself, that's where we should be. Plant something not necessary for me today, but maybe for my son or my grandson, that kind of thing. So that's where I'm headed. Now, in 9 years' time, what have I learned? I've learned what doesn't grow, and I've learned what is most promising. And I had a conversation with, I picked up our speakers from Michigan at LaGuardia last night, and I talked nonstop in the truck with them, and I asked.
We listened.
Yes.
Not listening to cause good.
You entertained me. You entertained me. Yes. Okay. And now I lost my thought. I need someone to keep me on track here. Okay. Someone help me out.
What was growing the best?
Okay, what grows the best? And I told him about my Turkish tree hazels. And then I said, isn't that what we're getting all our nuts from Turkey from? He says, no, they're actually coming from the European hazel bush. Oh, okay. That was a disappointment because I like these tree hazels.
They're windbreaks.
That's why I put them in there. That's exactly why I put them in there. I was up to Malcolm Olson. Is it Olson?
Yeah.
Okay, in Finley Lake. And I saw a tree hazel that was about 18 years old. It was the most beautiful pyramidal crown tree. It was about 10 inches in diameter, and I fell in love with it when I saw it. So, from an ornamental standpoint, I think a tree hazel is a nice tree. It has this nice corky bark too. It's white, and you can take your thumbnail, I don't mean dig into it and scrape it, but you'll feel it's a piece of cork. A lot of cork cells. So I grew them from seed, and they're doing really well here. I think they got a root system that could get through the soil. Now let's walk ahead and I'll show you some other things, okay?
How many acres?